Before cities, before walls, before kings, before taxes, before written laws, before offices, before rent, humans were wanderers. For most of our existence, we moved. We followed animals, seasons, rain, fruit, roots, rivers, and memory. We owned what we could carry. We slept where the group could survive. We left behind ash, bones, stone tools, and footprints. Then, in evolutionary time, everything changed. Humans stopped walking. We planted seeds, we stored grain, we built walls, we counted food, we obeyed schedules, we raised temples. We packed thousands of strangers into one place and called it civilization. And today, we are taught that this was obvious progress. Farming gave us food. Food gave us villages. Villages gave us cities. Cities gave us comfort, safety, and culture. It sounds clean. It sounds logical. It is also dangerously incomplete. Because when humans first settled down and became farmers, life did not simply become better. In many places, it became harder. The bones tell the truth. Early farmers often had worse teeth, shorter bodies, more nutritional stress, and more damage from repetitive labor than the hunter-gatherers before them. Their diets became narrower. Their work became longer. Their bodies bent over fields, grinding stones, canals, bricks, and grain. They lived closer to waste, animals, infection, and other humans. The city was not born as paradise. It was born as pressure. So why did humans do it? Why did a species built for movement trap itself inside fields, mud walls, rations, and hierarchy? The answer is not comfort. The answer is dependence. We did not build cities because farming immediately made life easy. We built cities because farming created a system that became impossible to escape. Now move the map back to the end of the last ice age. Around 12,000 years ago, the world began changing. Ice retreated, climate shifted, new landscapes appeared. In the Levant, groups like the Natufians began living in semi-permanent settlements. They were not full farmers yet. They gathered wild cereals. They hunted gazelle. They used grinding stones. They built small houses. They stayed longer in rich places because those places had enough food to make staying possible. But staying changes people. A mobile group can leave quickly. A settled group begins to collect things: heavy stones, stored food, burials, structures, territory, memory tied to one place. Then climate stress came. The Younger Dryas brought colder, drier conditions to parts of the region. The wild abundance became less reliable. Groups that had grown used to staying now faced a brutal choice: return to the old wandering life, or force the plants to grow where humans wanted them. And that may be where agriculture truly tightened its grip. Not as a brilliant invention made in comfort, but as a desperate response to instability. Do not just gather the grain, plant it. Do not just follow the landscape, control it. Do not just take what grows, make it grow here. That decision changed the human story forever. Because grain has a strange power. Grain can be stored, and anything that can be stored can be counted. Anything counted can be controlled, and anything controlled can become power. A hunter's meat spoils. Wild fruit disappears with the season. But grain can sit in a storehouse. It can be measured, guarded, taxed, distributed, withheld, promised, stolen, used to pay laborers, used to feed armies, used to command obedience. This is the hidden beginning of the city, not the house, not the wall. The storage pit. Once food could be stored in one place, humans could be organized around whoever controlled it. Now move the map to southern Mesopotamia. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates was powerful, but difficult. Hot plains, unpredictable rivers, rich mud, dangerous floods. To farm there at scale, humans had to engineer water. They dug canals, maintained fields, managed irrigation, moved mud, made bricks, repaired walls. This work could not be done by one family. It required coordination. Many bodies, many tools, many days, many orders. This is where a village becomes something else. A city is not just a large settlement. A city is a machine for organizing humans. It needs food from outside. It needs water control. It needs labor. It needs storage. It needs accounting. It needs authority. It needs belief. It needs people to do work they would never do alone. And once thousands of people are tied to the same fields, the same canals, the same storehouses, and the same gods, the city becomes more powerful than any individual inside it. Now look at Uruk. By around 3200 BC, Uruk had become one of the world's first true cities. Mud brick buildings, temples, workshops, crowds, storage, administration, specialists, walls. Uruk was not simply a place where many people lived. It was a new way of being human, a place where strangers depended on the same system, a place where food moved through institutions, a place where labor was counted, a place where power became permanent. And this is where writing appears. Some of the earliest writing in Mesopotamia was not poetry, not philosophy, not love letters, not grand stories of kings. It was accounting, grain, beer, animals, rations, workers, storage. The first written signs were often closer to spreadsheets than sacred literature. Civilization learned to write because the city needed receipts. Who brought grain? Who received grain? How much beer was issued? How much work was owed? Which field belonged to which temple? Which worker got paid? The city became too large for human memory, so memory became clay. That is one of the most important turning points in history. Writing did not begin only because humans wanted to express the soul. It began because someone had to track the grain. Now we have to talk about beer. Not modern beer, not a party drink. Ancient Mesopotamian beer was often thick, cloudy, grain-based, and nourishing. People drank it through straws from jars to avoid the solids. It provided calories. It used stored grain. It could be measured and distributed. It became part of the ration system that fed workers. Beer did not create civilization by itself, but bread and beer helped fuel the labor that cities required. A worker could dig canals, carry mud, mold bricks, or build temples and receive measured rations in return. Grain became bread. Grain became beer. Bread and beer became wages. Wages became labor. Labor became walls, temples, canals, and monuments. This is how biology became bureaucracy. Humans need calories. Institutions controlled calories. Therefore, institutions controlled humans. The temple was not only a religious building, it was an economic center, a storage center, an administrative center. The gods gave the system meaning. The storehouse gave it force. The scribes gave it memory. The workers gave it muscle. And grain gave it life. This is where hierarchy hardens. At the top, gods, priests, rulers, officials. Below them, scribes, brewers, potters, builders, canal workers, farmers. Everyone connected through food. Everyone dependent on the ration system. Everyone inside the machine. Could a person leave? Maybe. But where would they go? Wild lands had been cleared. Populations had grown. Old foraging skills had faded. Fields needed labor. Families depended on stored food. Specialists depended on other specialists. A potter does not easily become a hunter. A scribe does not easily become a nomad. A city child may not know the old routes, plants, water holes, and animal paths. This is how the trap closes. The city first offers survival. Then it creates dependence. Then, dependence becomes obedience. The old world outside the walls becomes harder to return to with every generation. Now look at the loop. More people need more grain. More grain needs more fields. More fields need more canals. More canals need more labor. More labor needs more rations. More rations need more grain. Stored grain attracts raiders. Raiders require walls. Walls require bricks. Bricks require labor. Labor requires food. Food requires administration. Administration requires scribes. Scribes require institutions. Institutions require authority. Authority requires belief, force, and law. This is the engine of the first cities. Not peace, not comfort. A loop of grain, labor, storage, defense, and control. And once the loop started, it expanded. Cities grew because cities were powerful. They could store food, raise armies, build walls, control trade, organize labor, record debts, command religion, and dominate the land around them. Even if the average person inside worked harder and suffered more, the city itself became stronger. That is why cities spread. Not because every human inside them became freer, because the system became better at surviving than the people who lived outside it. That is the brutal truth. Civilization did not win because it was always healthier. It won because it was scalable. A hunter-gatherer band can be free, skilled, and resilient. But a city can store surplus, feed soldiers, build walls, and conquer territory. Power does not always come from making life better. Sometimes it comes from making more people dependent on the same machine. This is why the first cities matter. They changed the human animal. Before cities, humans belonged directly to landscapes. After cities, humans belonged to systems. A forager read animal tracks. A city worker read orders. A hunter followed herds. A farmer followed irrigation schedules. A wanderer carried tools. A laborer received rations. A small band negotiated face-to-face. A city obeyed institutions. We domesticated wheat. We domesticated barley. We domesticated sheep and goats. But those things also domesticated us. They made us stay. They made us wake. Plant, harvest, count, store, guard, pay, obey, and repeat. They changed our bodies. They changed our diets. They changed our time. They changed our gods. They changed our idea of work. The final product of agriculture was not only bread, it was the urban human. Now look around the modern city. Glass towers, concrete roads, apartments, offices, banks, digital money, bills, schedules, identification numbers, work contracts, food supply chains, delivery systems. At first, this seems completely different from Uruk, but the structure is familiar. The clay tablet is now a spreadsheet. The grain ration is now a salary. The temple storehouse is now a bank, company, warehouse, or state. The city wall is now rent, law, infrastructure, debt, and dependency. You work to receive numbers. Those numbers secure food, water, shelter, transport, heat, medicine, and status. Labor becomes currency. Currency becomes survival. Survival requires participation. Participation strengthens the system. The system becomes the world. This is why ancient cities are not dead ruins. They are the beginning of the machine we still live inside. We are still inside the walls. They are just harder to see now. The walls are no longer only mud brick. They are economic, administrative, legal, digital, psychological. You can leave a city physically, but can you leave the system that cities created? That is the question. Because the first city was not only a place, it was a new kind of human life. A life where survival depended on institutions. A life where food came through systems. A life where work became measurable. A life where power could be stored like grain. And once power could be stored, counted, guarded, and distributed, the world changed forever. So why did humans build cities? Not because cities were simply comfortable, not because farming instantly improved life, not because progress moved in a straight line. Humans built cities because climate pressure, stored grain, growing populations, water control, labor demands, ritual authority, and fear pulled them into one place and made leaving harder with every generation. We built cities to survive. Then cities taught us to obey. We built storehouses to protect food. Then storehouses created power. We built temples to speak to gods. Then temples organized labor. We invented writing to remember grain. Then writing remembered debts. We built walls to protect ourselves. Then the walls kept us inside the system. That is the hidden story of the first cities. Not humanity calmly choosing civilization. Humanity being pulled into a machine it did not fully understand. A machine made of mud, water, grain, beer, labor, fear, and belief. A machine that gave us writing, law, architecture, trade, mathematics, and collective power. But also hierarchy, disease, taxation, crowding, war, and dependence. The city was both miracle and trap, shelter and cage, engine and home. And every time you walk through a modern metropolis, every time you clock into work, pay rent, open a bank app, buy food, follow a schedule, or depend on systems too large to understand, you are still living inside that ancient bargain. The technology changed, the scale changed, the tablets glow now, the rations are digital, the walls are invisible, but the machine is still running. It began in the mud of the first cities, and it has never really stopped.